What's up, yo? I'm Julio Martinez, and this is Set the Record Straight. Now, today, we're going to be doing something different. We're going to be mixing it up a little bit. I'm introducing a new segment to the show called The Dial-In. Now, why is it called The Dial-In? Well, I'm taking questions and calls from fans and listeners and viewers of the show, and I'll be answering them on the show on the spot. I'll be channeling my inner sports radio show host. Anyways, let's get right to the calls of my viewers, and let's answer them right away after this intro video. Let's get to it. So let's take our first call. Our first call comes from Josh from Long Beach, California.
Hey, Julio. My question for you today is actually two questions. First, if you had to start a franchise with either of these point guards, who would you rather choose and why? Between Kyrie Irving and Allen Iverson, who do you think would be a better franchise player? Secondly, my question is, who do you think would actually win a one-on-one? And if you can give us a little quick kind of like info on each of their game, or who you think would win and why.
Well, thanks for submitting the question, Josh, and the call. But especially as second, that's a tough question. But I mean, let's attack the first question. First and foremost, who would I rather build a franchise around? Kyrie Irving or Allen Iverson? Well, for starters, Kyrie Irving is my favorite player in the NBA today, but Allen Iverson is also one of my 5 favorite players ever. So from that perspective, from that standpoint, of who's my favorite player and who I love watching more, they're kind of both equal in my heart from that standpoint. But, even though circumstances aren't always equal, they're not always apples to apples, only one of these guys has shown the ability as a number one on their team to lead his team to the NBA Finals, and that's Allen Iverson. And just for context, listen really quickly. This is the team that Allen Iverson took to the NBA Finals. Dikembe Mutombo, Tyrone Hill, Aaron McKee, Matt Geiger, Eric Snow, Raja Bell, Kevin Ollie, Rodney Buford, George Lynch. I mean, if I told these names to the casual NBA fan, they'd be like, who? Who is that? The only one, most people probably know is Dikembe Mutombo for his little, finger wag, but not because his actual play on the court. So that kind of gives you perspective on the team that was around AI. And, I hate to use the word single-handedly because there's more nuance to the game than, single-handedly taking down and beating a team. But I just can't overlook how much AI ran this engine by himself. He beat the Bucks with Ray Allen, Glenn Robinson, Sam Cassell, Michael Redd, Rafer Alston. He beat the Raptors with Vince Carter, Charles Oakley, Antonio Davis, Mark Jackson. He beat the Pacers with Reggie Miller, Jalen Rose, and Jermaine O'Neal. I mean, the man had to average 33 points a night in the playoffs, night in and night out, just to keep his team above water. There was no such thing as a number 2 option. And truth be told, this might be the worst team of all time to make it to the NBA Finals. At the end of the day, I have to go with the guy who actually proved he could lead a team to the NBA Finals, to the final destination, and actually be on a winning squad in that fashion. Now on to the second question. Who would I take between AI and Kyrie in a one-on-one matchup? Now this question really gives me a headache. Now let's keep in mind that this isn't a who's greater argument because that takes into account accolades and legacy, and we know that AI takes that far and away, and he's the greater superstar in those respects. So for keeping that in mind, that this is just a one-on-one matchup, it's not about leadership or the ability to be compatible with your teammates. No, it's just about, purely an analyzation of their skill sets. I do believe that in the end, now I know people are going to push back, they're not going to agree with me, but I believe in the end that Kyrie Irving has a slight edge over AI, and it's just a slight one. Why? Well, I'm one of those people who believe that Kyrie Irving, just from a skill standpoint, might be the most skilled player of all time, and if not top 5 easily. Kyrie Irving has the best handle of all time in NBA history, and I don't want to hear any other argument. I know, CP has a mean crossover. I know that, White Chocolate, is cold with it. I know AI, guys like Steph, but they just don't match up to what Kyrie does on the floor with the ball. He's also the greatest finisher ever at the point guard position, and he does so with both hands. I mean, Kyrie Irving has everything in his bag. He can shoot off the catch, he can shoot off the dribble, and he does those things at all three levels. He has, step backs, side steps. He has pick and rolls down to a T. Counters on counters on counters on counters. He can change the pace like crazy. His turnaround jumpers are nasty. And not to mention in this matchup specifically, he's the bigger player. He's 6'2" compared to Allen Iverson's 6 feet. He's 195 compared to Allen Iverson's 165. Sports advances, it sophisticates itself, and Kyrie Irving is just a slightly better version skill-wise. Not greater, in the overall scheme of things, but just skillful. And it definitely wouldn't be by a large margin. It'd be a slight margin, but a margin nonetheless. I'm taking Kyrie Irving. Let's move on to the second caller of the day. We got Diego Avila from Claremont, California.
Hey, what's up, Julio? Hope everything's good. Really like what you're doing with your show here. Just wanted to call in and ask a question regarding Trae Young and the Hawks. And my question is, do you think Trae Young needs to leave the Hawks to win a championship, or can he build with the young core they have there in John Collins and Cam Reddish and the boys, and can they build something there?
Well, thanks for the question, Diego. And it's a good question, and it's a funny question at that, because Trae Young recently signed with Clutch Sports, which is LeBron's friend's sports agency, and it's a social media joke that whoever signs with Clutch Sports is somehow funneled to the Lakers or funneled to LeBron's team wherever he's at that point of his career. But let's get right to it. First of all, I never bought into this overwhelming hype a lot of NBA fans and analysts were giving the Hawks at the beginning of the season. All this talk that they were going to make the playoffs, I frankly thought it was silly. And this comes from a guy who, I love Trae Young as a player. I'm a fan of his, and I don't understand why so many critics were on him and said he was about to flop in the NBA at the draft when he was getting drafted. But to be a serious contender in the long run, they're going to need a KD, Kawhi, or at the very least, if you're being optimistic, a player like Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine, Devin Booker, Jason Tatum, along with additional key role players attached to those players, which they have some of now. And yes, I call their current players role players. They're nothing more than that. They are not the core to a championship team. They are role players, other than Trae Young, of course. Clint Capella, John Collins, DeAndre Hunter, Cam Reddish, the Red Velvet Shooter, they need to be role players attached to the core of Trae Young and a superstar wing. And do I foresee that happening and that being realistic? Atlanta being able to sign a key and big superstar free agent to put next to Trae Young and then being able to build around and put the necessary pieces around that core? Hell no, that's not realistic. So in short, yes, the man needs to pack his bags and bring his butt to LA. No, but in all seriousness though, this marriage, if Trae Young is so committed to winning and is willing to leave Atlanta for it, this marriage is not going to end well and they're going to end up divorcing each other. In the end, what I see is Trae Young saying peace to the Hawks. So that about does it for us today. And as always, thank you for tuning in to another episode of Set the Record Straight. And if you guys want to submit a question or a call for a future dial-in episode, I'd be happy to receive them and happy to answer them on future episodes. You guys can text me if you have my number or DM me through Instagram. That's Julio_Martinez with 2 O's and 2 Z's. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. Thank you and peace out.